I need you to tell everyone we're just friends at the reunion. My ex will be there, and I want to see how he reacts, she said casually. I said, okay, and walked out permanently. She texted after the reunion, ready to go back to normal. I said, normal ended yesterday, and turned my phone off. I'm Jordan Pierce, 32, sales manager at Columbus Logistics. Melanie and I had been engaged for 6 months, together for 2.5 years total. We had $15,000 in non-refundable deposits on our wedding venue, downtown. I was 8 months into paying off her engagement ring. My grandmother's ring reset with a new diamond. Save the dates had been mailed to 150 people 3 weeks ago. My mom had already bought her mother-of-the-groom dress. Until Thursday night, when she looked up from her phone with the same tone you'd use to ask someone to pass the remote. The reunion was Saturday, 2 days away. She wanted me to stand in a room full of her classmates, people I'd met at engagement parties, people who'd congratulated us, people who'd already marked their calendars for our October wedding, and pretend none of it existed. Not as her fiancé, not as her partner of 2.5 years, just some convenient background character in whatever psychological theater she wanted to stage with Brady Walsh, some guy she dated junior year. At first, I thought I'd misheard her. What did you say? I need you to tell everyone we're just friends at the reunion. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. The smile that would tell me this was some weird joke I wasn't getting. It didn't come. Melanie and I met at a company mixer 2.5 years ago. She worked in marketing for MedPoint Healthcare here in Columbus. Quick wit, good conversation, shared the same dry humor about corporate life. We started dating 3 weeks later, after she texted me about a terrible client meeting that had her questioning her career choices. 6 months in, she moved into my duplex when her apartment. Lease ended. It felt natural. We split utilities 70-30 since I pulled down more in sales commissions. Cooked together on Sunday afternoons, binged Netflix series, fell into what seemed like genuine partnership. I proposed last October at Goodale Park during the fall festival. She cried. Posted 17 photos on Instagram within an hour, called her mom before we'd even left the park. Looking back now, I can see the pattern I ignored. Brady Walsh came up too often in casual conversation, always framed as meaningless mentions. Brady used to hate that movie too. Brady's cousin just had a baby. Little breadcrumbs of someone she claimed didn't matter. I didn't police it. Everyone has exes. Everyone has history. Secure people don't get threatened by ancient relationships from high school. That's what I told myself anyway. But there were other signs I rationalized away. The way she'd check her phone during dinner and smile at something, then quickly close the screen when I glanced over. How she'd angle her body away from me when texting sometimes. Mentions of getting messages from old friends from school without elaboration about who or what. I operated on trust until given reason not to. That was my framework. That was my mistake. The reunion invitation arrived 3 weeks ago in a group text to her phone. She showed me, laughing at names she hadn't seen in 10 years. God, I can't believe some of these people are married with kids now. I watched her pause on one name in the confirmed attendees list, Brady Walsh. She didn't comment, just kept scrolling. But I caught the slight change in her expression, the way her thumb hovered over his name just a second too long. She RSVP'd yes the next day. I asked if she wanted me to come along for moral support. She hesitated, just for a second, but I noticed. It's more of a classmates-only thing, she said. You'd probably be bored out of your mind hearing stories about people you don't know. Made sense. High school. Reunions are weird social territories full of inside jokes and ancient history. I wouldn't want to drag her to mine either. But Thursday night, sitting in our living room after we'd finished dinner and I'd loaded the dishwasher, she revised the script. Actually, you should come Saturday, she said, still looking at her phone. It'll be fun. You can finally meet everyone I grew up with. I looked up from the work emails I'd been answering on my laptop. Sure, sounds good. Standard supportive partner behavior. Meet her old friends. Make small talk about Columbus versus wherever they had all scattered. Be the stable, successful fiancé who proved she'd done well for herself. Then came the second part, the part that ended everything. She set her phone down on our coffee table, screen up. I could see a text thread open with someone named Jessica. The preview line showed, "Is Brady bringing anyone? I heard he moved back to town." Melanie looked at me, not nervous, not guilty, just matter of fact, like she was about to discuss weekend grocery plans. One thing, though, she said, I need you to tell everyone we're just friends. The words hit me like cold water. I blinked, certain I'd misunderstood. What? At the reunion. Just tell people we're friends if anyone asks about us. I set my laptop aside, suddenly needing to focus completely on this conversation. Why would I do that? She shrugged one shoulder, casual, like this was minor logistics, like asking me to remember to pick up dry cleaning. Brady's going to be there. I want to see how he reacts if he thinks I'm available. The room felt smaller suddenly, quieter. I could hear the hum of our refrigerator in the kitchen, the faint buzz of the overhead light fixture that had been flickering all week. You want me to pretend we're not engaged so you can manipulate your ex-boyfriend's emotions? It's not manipulation, she rolled her eyes, a little smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. It's just seeing if he still cares. It's harmless research. Harmless research. Look, we broke up in a really messy way senior year. He didn't want it to end. I did. I just want to know if he ever actually moved on or if he's still hung up on me. That's all. I stared at her, trying to map this person onto the woman I thought I'd been building a life with, the woman wearing my grandmother's ring, the woman whose name was already on our venue contract and catering agreement. You want me to stand in a room next to you and lie to everyone we meet about who I am to you? It's not lying exactly. We are friends. We're just also engaged. Friends is a subset of what we are. Melanie, what? She looked genuinely confused by my tone, like she couldn't understand why I wasn't immediately agreeing to this reasonable request. It's not a big deal, Jordan. It's one night, just a few hours. You don't even have to talk to him directly. Just let him wonder about my situation. I felt something shift inside my chest. A cold recognition settling in like morning frost. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. You want me to take off my engagement ring, pretend we don't live together, act like we haven't been planning a wedding for 6 months, so you can play psychological games with someone you dated when you were 17. You're making it sound worse than it is. Am I? I thought about the last 2.5 years, the duplex mortgage I'd put both our names on 8 months ago, the joint checking account we'd opened for wedding expenses, the countless dinners where I'd held her hand while she stressed about work deadlines, the weekend I'd driven 4 hours to Cleveland to help her move her mom into assisted living, the engagement party where she'd introduced me to her extended family as the one, the ring payment that auto-debited from my account every month like clockwork. I thought about the vendor meetings we'd attended together, the cake tasting where she'd gotten frosting on her nose and I'd kissed it off while the baker smiled indulgently, the tuxedo fitting last month where she'd sat in the corner FaceTiming her best friend about how excited she was, the save the dates we'd spend an entire Sunday afternoon addressing by hand because she wanted them to feel personal. And here she was asking me to erase all of it, to become invisible, to serve as background scenery in her psychological experiment with a man who probably hadn't thought about her in years. You know what this is? I said. This is you telling me that your need for validation from Brady Walsh is more important than my dignity, more important than our relationship, more important than basic respect. Her face hardened slightly. That's not what I'm saying at all. Then what are you saying? I'm saying it's one night. One small thing I'm asking for after 2.5 years together, after everything we've been through. Everything we've been through. I repeated the words, tasting their bitter irony. Like what? Like me supporting you through your career transition last year? Like us building this life together? Like me putting your name on my mortgage? Don't throw that in my face. I'm not throwing anything. I'm trying to understand how the woman who cried when I proposed 8 months ago is now asking me to pretend that proposal never happened. She stood up from the couch, pacing to the window that overlooked our small backyard, the yard where we'd talked about maybe adding a deck after the wedding, where we'd planned to let our future kids play someday. You don't understand what it was like with Brady, she said, her back to me, how it ended, the things he said. Then tell me. She turned around. He told everyone at school that I was the one who couldn't let go, that I kept texting him after we broke up. It wasn't true, but people believed him. I want him to see that I did fine without him, better than fine. And there it was, the real truth underneath all the casual manipulation. So this isn't about seeing if he still cares about you. This is about proving something to him. Maybe both. Using me as a prop in your high school revenge fantasy? It's not revenge. It's just what, Melanie? She sat back down, suddenly looking younger, more like the girl she must have been at 17, hurt and wanting to save face. Forget it, she said. Forget I asked. We'll just go together as a couple, and that'll be that. But I couldn't forget it. The request hung in the air between us like smoke, impossible to clear. Because she'd asked, because for however brief a moment, she'd seen our engagement, our life together, our future plans, as something optional, something she could toggle on and off based on convenience. No, I said quietly. No what? No, we're not just going to forget you asked, because you did ask. You looked at me, your fiancé, the man you're supposed to marry in 4 months, and asked me to pretend I don't exist so you can get one over on your high school boyfriend. Jordan, come on. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, needing space to think. She followed me, her voice taking on a pleading edge I'd never heard before. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I asked. It was stupid. We'll go as a couple, and I won't even talk to Brady if you don't want me to. But that wasn't the point anymore. The point was that she'd thought it was okay to ask in the first place. The point was the casual entitlement in her voice when she'd said it. The assumption that my dignity was negotiable if it served her purposes. I opened our kitchen drawer, where we kept important papers, found our mortgage documents, saw both our names printed there in black and white. Melanie Pierce to B, I'd joked when we'd signed them. She'd laughed and said she couldn't wait. Now I wondered how much of that had been performance too. I need some air, I said. Where are you going? For a drive, to think. About what? I said forget it. Problem solved. I looked at her standing in our kitchen, in the space we'd created together, surrounded by the life we'd built. Problem's not solved, Melanie. Problem's just getting started. I grabbed my keys from the counter and headed for the door. Jordan, wait. But I was already gone. I drove around Columbus for 2 hours that night, past our wedding venue downtown, its limestone facade lit up against the dark sky. Past the jewelry store where we'd picked out the setting for my grandmother's diamond. Past MedPoint Healthcare where Melanie worked, where we'd first met at that mixer that seemed like a lifetime ago. By the time I got back to the duplex, she was asleep, or pretending to be. I sat in my car in our driveway for another 30 minutes, engine off, trying to find a way back to normal, trying to convince myself that people say stupid things when they're nervous about seeing exes, that she'd wake up tomorrow horrified by what she'd asked, that we could laugh about it in a few years, maybe even include it in our wedding toast as a funny story about how Jordan almost lost his mind over nothing. But every time I tried to rationalize it away, I kept coming back to the casual tone of her voice. The way she'd shrugged when she said it, like asking me to erase myself was no different than asking me to pick up milk on the way home. I finally went inside around midnight. Melanie was curled up on her side of the bed, breathing the deep, steady rhythm of actual sleep. I stood in the doorway watching her, trying to see the woman I'd proposed to. The woman who'd cried happy tears and called her mom before we'd even left the park. I couldn't find her. The next morning, Friday, Melanie acted like nothing had happened. Made coffee for both of us, kissed me goodbye before leaving for work, reminded me that we were supposed to have dinner with her parents Sunday night to go over final wedding details. Mom's so excited about the flowers, she said, gathering her purse and laptop bag. She thinks the centerpieces are going to be perfect. I watched her check her reflection in the hallway mirror, adjust her earrings, smooth down her hair. Normal Friday morning routine. Like she hadn't asked me to pretend our engagement didn't exist less than 12 hours earlier. Melanie, she turned, eyebrows raised in question. About last night. Oh. She waved a hand dismissively. I told you to forget about that. It was dumb. We're going as a couple, end of story. But I couldn't forget about it. And the fact that she could, that she expected me to just flip a switch and move on, somehow made it worse. I need to understand something, I said. When you asked me to lie about our relationship, how did you think I'd react? She paused, hand on the doorknob. I don't know. I thought you'd just do it. It's not like it would hurt anyone. It would hurt me. How? And there it was. She genuinely didn't understand how being asked to deny our relationship would hurt me. Couldn't see how it reduced me to a supporting actor in her personal drama. Never mind, I said. Go to work. She hesitated, sensing something in my tone she couldn't quite identify. Are we okay? Yeah, I lied. We're fine. After she left, I called in sick to work. Spent the day walking around German Village thinking. Stopped by the venue where we'd be married in 4 months. The coordinator, Janet, recognized me immediately. "Jordan, how nice to see you. Is Melanie with you?" "No, just me today." "Well, everything's coming along beautifully for October. The flowers Melanie picked out are going to be stunning. You're a lucky man." I nodded, managed a smile. "Yeah, lucky." But walking away from that conversation, I realized something had crystallized in my chest, a cold, hard certainty that had been building since Thursday night. I couldn't marry someone who saw our relationship as optional, who would ask me to make myself invisible for her. Convenience. Who treated my dignity as negotiable. The thought terrified me. We'd sent save the dates. People had booked flights. My parents had already paid for the rehearsal dinner. Melanie's dress was hanging in our bedroom closet, still in its protective bag. But underneath the terror was something else. Relief. Like I'd been holding my breath for months without realizing it. I went home and started making lists. Vendors to call, deposits to cancel, explanations to figure out. The financial hit alone would be brutal. Most of the money was gone, sunk into non-refundable commitments. Then I thought about the alternative. Standing at the altar in 4 months, promising to honor and cherish someone who'd asked me to pretend she was available to make her ex-boyfriend jealous. The money suddenly didn't matter. When Melanie got home that evening, I was sitting at our kitchen table with my laptop open, vendor contracts spread around me. "What's all this?" "Homework," I said. She sat down. Her purse moved closer to look over my shoulder. I watched her face change as she recognized the letterhead from our caterer, our photographer, our DJ. "Jordan, what are you doing?" "Figuring out what it costs to cancel a wedding." The color drained from her face. "You're not serious." "Dead serious. Because of what I said about the reunion, I already told you to forget it." I closed the laptop, turned to face her. "I can't forget it, Melanie. I can't forget that you looked at me, your fiancé, and asked me to pretend we weren't engaged so you could play games with your high school boyfriend. It wasn't games. I know what you wanted, and what you wanted was more important to you than my feelings, more important than our relationship, more important than basic respect." Her eyes filled with tears. "That's not true." "Then explain to me how asking me to lie about our engagement shows respect." She couldn't. "We can work through this," she said finally. "Couples, counseling, whatever you want, but don't blow up our entire life over one stupid comment." But it wasn't one stupid comment. It was a window into how she really saw me, saw us. And once I'd seen through it, I couldn't unsee. "I'm done, Melanie." "You don't mean that." I looked at her across our kitchen table, surrounded by the evidence of the life we'd built together, the future we'd planned. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I do." The next 24 hours were the hardest of my life. Saturday morning, while Melanie was getting ready for the reunion she'd ultimately attend alone, I was on the phone with vendors. The conversations were brutal. Janet from the venue was confused, then concerned, then coldly professional when I explained we needed to cancel. "Mr. Pierce, I'm very sorry to hear this. As you know, your contract specifies that deposits are non-refundable within 90 days of the event date." "I understand. That means you'll forfeit the entire $15,000. $15,000. Gone. The equivalent of 3 months of mortgage payments, money I'd saved for over a year, working overtime, skipping vacations, eating lunch at my desk instead of going out with colleagues. But sitting in my duplex that morning, listening to Melanie cry in the shower, I realized something. I'd rather lose $15,000 than spend the rest of my life with someone who saw me as disposable. The caterer was more sympathetic, but equally firm about their policies. The photographer offered to do a smaller engagement session instead, not understanding that there would be no engagement to photograph. The DJ just said, "Shit happens," and hung up. By noon, I'd canceled everything I could and tallied the financial damage, $23,000 in total losses. Wedding deposits, engagement party costs we'd split, the ring payment plan I'd have to finish alone since the store's return policy had expired. Melanie emerged from the bedroom in a black dress I'd never seen before, makeup carefully applied to hide the evidence of her crying. "I'm going," she said. "Okay. I'm going to tell everyone we broke up, that you called it off." I looked up from my laptop. Tell them whatever you want. Don't you care how this makes you look? The question hit me wrong. Even now, even after everything, she was thinking about appearances, about narrative control. No, Melanie, I don't care how it looks. I care how it actually is. She stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed her purse and left. I spent Saturday afternoon calling family. My parents were devastated but supportive. My mom cried, asked if there was any way to work things out. My dad, a man of few words, just said, "If that's what she asked you to do, son, you made the right call." Melanie's parents were harder. They'd grown fond of me over 2.5 years, included me in holiday celebrations, bragged about their future son-in-law to their friends. Her mom sobbed on the phone. Her dad demanded to know what I'd done wrong. I didn't tell them about the reunion request. Just said we'd realized we weren't compatible long-term. Let them think what they wanted. Sunday, Travis Cooper called me. "Heard you might need a place to crash." "How did you hear that?" "Jessica Morgan. She was at the reunion last night. Apparently Melanie showed up alone and spent the entire evening asking people about Brady Walsh. Who was there, by the way? With his fiancé." I almost laughed. "His fiancé?" "Yeah. Been engaged for 8 months, apparently. Same as you guys were. Jessica said Melanie looked like she'd seen a ghost when Brady introduced his partner around." So all of it, the request, the manipulation, the casual willingness to sacrifice our relationship, had been for nothing. Brady Walsh had moved on completely, was building a life with someone else, probably hadn't thought about Melanie Pierce in years. Jessica also said Melanie told people you'd broken up with her out of nowhere, that you were unstable, couldn't handle the pressure of wedding planning. Of course she did. Most people didn't buy it. Jessica's been telling anyone who will listen about Melanie's pattern of behavior. Apparently this isn't the first time she's pulled something like this. That caught my attention. "What do you mean?" "She dated some guy in college, Matt something. Same story. Wanted him to pretend they weren't together at some party so her high school ex would think she was available. He said no, she dumped him, told everyone he was controlling." The pattern was becoming clear. Melanie collected relationships but kept one foot out the door, always looking over her shoulder at what she'd left behind, never fully committing to what she had. "You dodged a bullet, Jordan." "Expensive bullet. Better expensive than permanent." Monday, I threw myself into work. Focused on a big logistics contract I'd been chasing for months. Landed it Tuesday, biggest commission of my career, enough to offset some of the wedding losses. Proof that life would go on. Melanie texted throughout the week, first angry, then pleading, then manipulative. "Everyone thinks you're crazy for ending our engagement over nothing. I'm seeing a therapist. We can work through this. You're throwing away 2.5 years because you're too proud to forgive one mistake." I didn't respond to any of them. Finally blocked her number Thursday night. 3 months later, I was having lunch with a colleague, Paige Hudson, at a conference in Cincinnati. She was smart, direct, refreshingly honest about her opinions. When she disagreed with a speaker's presentation, she said so. When she thought a vendor was overcharging, she called them on it. No games, no hidden agendas. "You seem different," she said over coffee after the sessions ended. "Different how?" "Lighter, maybe, like you're not carrying something heavy anymore." I thought about that. About the weight I'd been carrying for months without realizing it, the constant low-level anxiety that came from being with someone who saw relationships as performances, who treated love like a strategy game. "I guess I'm not," I said. 6 months after that lunch, Paige and I were planning a weekend trip to Chicago. She pulled up hotel options on her laptop. "This one looks good," she said. "What do you think?" "Looks perfect. Book it." "Really? Just like that?" "Yeah, why not?" She smiled, clicked the reservation button. No consultation with exes about whether they'd be jealous. No complex calculations about appearances or narratives or who might be watching. Just two people deciding to experience something together. That night, Paige asked if I ever thought about Melanie. "Sometimes," I said. Not in a missing her way, more like remembering a lesson. What lesson? That some people see relationships as performances, and performing isn't the same as living. Because that's what I learned in the end. Love isn't about staging scenes for an audience of people who don't matter. It's not about managing perceptions or controlling narratives or proving points to ghosts from your past. Real love exists in the quiet moments when no one else is watching, when someone sees you completely, and chooses to stay, not because it serves some agenda, but because they can't imagine being anywhere else.